Hello and welcome to Christopher Shaw Residential. My name is Matt and I am here with my regular co-host James Tiller. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe if you want to be kept up to date with latest landlord content. But today we welcome Maria Redfearn from Goodlord to talk to us about rent protection. Hello Maria.
Hi guys, how are you both?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. We work really closely with Goodlord and they provide us the platform for our tenant referencing and contract setup. And we're delighted to welcome Maria here today to talk to us about rent protection.
That's great, thanks for having me.
No, thank you for jumping on. I know you guys are probably very busy with all these rent protection policies. So leading into the very first question we had for you, Maria. So obviously tenant affordability, we take a lot of calls from tenants on a daily basis. And one of the first things we do obviously is qualify, their financial situation. So we can just make sure that they marry up to the property. Obviously, if there is a rent protection policy, there is certain criteria to hit. So with tenants being stretched in the current financial climate, we felt it was quite important to bring you on with more information on affordable ways to protect yourself as a landlord from tenant or rent arrears and expensive legal costs if it gets really far down the line.
Yeah.
So Maria, can you just kind of give us a bit more information about these policies for our audience?
Yeah, of course, no problem. So hello everyone, and thanks for watching. So what I'll do is I'll explain a little bit about what my background is, and then I'll talk to you a bit about what Goodlord can do with our product.
Yeah.
So I've worked at Goodlord for just over 3 years, but I've been in the industry for about 11 years, and I've always worked with rent protection to help letting agents protect their landlords and include it as part of their service. One of Goodlord's main aims is to give everyone complete peace of mind all the time, which I will come on to a little bit further as we go through the session. But it's basically looking at our opportunity with each let to make sure that landlords are going to get that rent paid and that all the compliance is done correctly. So with rent protection, it's something that our letting agents buy from us directly, and then they will sell it on as a service to their landlords. So my job is to help facilitate that, help them look at how it can fit into certain packages, and also talk to them about the benefits to their landlords as well. Would it be helpful if I went through exactly what the policy did?
Yeah, I think so. Because one of the questions that we were going to ask is, apart from the financial aspects of the policy and what landlords can receive from it, is what those benefits are.
Great. Okay, so I'll tie that all in together if that's okay. So our rent and legal is split into two halves. You've got the rent side and the legal side. So on the rent side, we pay out 100% of rent until vacant possession. So what that means for you and for your landlords is that if a tenant falls into arrears, it doesn't matter how long it takes to get that tenant out the property. The Goodlord policy will pay that rent the whole time. You're able to then take your management fee as it's agreed with the landlord, and then you can pass the rent on to the landlord as normal. It doesn't have an excess either. So just to be clear, out there on the market, there are products that carry an excess. In the world of rent protection, that is a full month's rent. So guys, what's your average rent that you're dealing with roughly?
Probably around £1,000 a month.
Yeah, I would say 950 to 1,000 roughly.
Okay, so if you use the policy with an excess, that would be £1,000 straight away if you claim that you don't get. That's not the case with Goodlord. We're a nil excess product.
Great.
So you've got payment until vacant possession, you've got nil excess, and then once we've got the tenant out the property, we also offer up to 2 months at 75% of the rent whilst you're reletting that property for the landlord. What this means is the landlord has some support there where the property might not be in a very good state. It might take a little while to find a tenant to move into it. They have that up to 2 months at 75% as long as they recommit to letting through their current agent.
Brilliant. Now, we kind of know the answer to this one, but just for everyone's benefit, the tenant defaults on their payment of rent. At which point does the policy kick in so the landlord starts getting money?
So you, as the agent, have 45 days to tell us when a tenant falls into arrears. So say the rent's due today, the clock starts then, and you have 45 days from that point. Whenever you log a claim, our process is that we will mediate for up to 2 weeks. So as you can imagine, a third party reaching out to a tenant is sometimes quite effective to get them to give us a bit more information to understand people's circumstances a bit more. So we'll mediate for 2 weeks and then we send the claim to our insurer, who pay within a further week. So from the time that you put the claim in with Goodlord to when you get your first month's rent paid is 3 weeks. And then following that, everything is paid monthly in arrears.
Yep. Fantastic. So apart from the financial aspects, obviously we know the core benefit of it is rent. Are there any other benefits, like we mentioned, kind of legal costs?
Absolutely. So we have £100,000 worth of legal costs. Now, the legal costs for me are a financial benefit, but really what the legal costs give you is complete peace of mind, and landlords don't have to get involved in the eviction process either. Yeah. So the legal costs include the serving of the Section 8 notice. We'll arrange a legal advocate, the court costs, the bailiff, that's all included and done under the policy. Now, where a landlord doesn't have rent protection or has it themselves, they have to organise all of that themselves. They have to attend court. They have to be there when the bailiff is there, or they can pay your monthly fee and you guys can take care of it all and then pass it through to us to deal with the legal side of it. One thing that I did want to mention just today is I understand that it's not just rent arrears that can sometimes worry a landlord. It could be that they definitely want the property back at the end of the tenancy. And so they want to know that that tenant will vacate at the end of the tenancy. If a Section 21 is served on that tenant, they fail to vacate, our policy can evict them even if they're still paying the rent. Anything else that might crop up as well, such as subletting. There's lots of different things under the policy that we can help you with. It's not just for rent arrears, as you say, Matt.
That's really interesting.
It is. It's good. And having worked on a few claims in the past, the legal side work with you to get the result that the landlord is wanting. I'm glad that you mentioned the point about the Section 21s. We've had it before where they've assisted in serving a Section 21 as well as a Section 8 at the same time to ensure the landlord gets possession. So it's a really comprehensive service that you get from the legal team once you've sort of gone through those initial stages of assessing what the claim is. So, and one of the best things about the policies with Goodlord is that because of the way the platform is set up, it makes sharing information with solicitors and the legal team really easy, doesn't it? And how does that legal part of the policy work when you're presenting a claim to them?
Yeah, it's a really good point, actually, James. So where you as the agent do the process through the platform, we take care of all of that compliance, which is one of the main points of sale for us as a platform. We're looking for agents to be compliant, that they've got all the right documents, that everything's up to date as much as it should be. So what happens at the start of the tenancy is that all of those documents, such as the EPC, the How to Rent Guide, the AST, they're all presented to the tenant in the format that they should be. So the tenant has the right information before they move into the property. That is your compliance taken care of. What that means is that when a claim is made, we have access to all of it. So there's only a few documents that we need from you, such as a rent statement. We would need the inventory as well, because that's not uploaded to our platform as it stands. But those couple of documents are just uploaded onto the platform when you log a claim to say this tenant hasn't paid. But we pull everything else. So all your referencing reports, when the tenant should have paid, that is all on there on our platform. And so we pull that. What our claim form does is it encompasses everything the solicitors are going to need. So what you would do, James, for example, where you've logged that claim, you log that claim once. We gather all that information off our platform or from you, and then we present that back to the solicitor. So what we don't have is the back and forth of, oh, can you provide that? Can you provide this document? And you providing things over and over again. Our platform is built to do that, and there's quite a lot of other providers on the market where they don't have a platform such as ours. It's taking people around sort of 3 or 4 hours to log a claim, whereas you'll know yourself, James, it sort of takes around like 5-10 minutes to put a claim in on the platform. Really, it's nice and easy.
Yeah, it is. It's a straightforward process. Obviously, having done a few, you kind of get to know it a little bit, and you understand what is required, yeah, that information is all on Goodlord from the beginning, so it makes it a lot easier. It's all in one place, just to go, well, there you go. So rent protection's been around for a long time now. It's not a new product, but it's becoming more and more popular with landlords. Why do you think that is? And when did you start to see that change happening?
So yeah, if I look at sort of 4 or 5 years ago, protection was seen as something that was landlords would have seen it. They would only use it if they were concerned about the tenant that was going in. If they thought that the agent that they were using wasn't going to do a very good job, and maybe I need to protect myself. COVID hit, and this product became very popular because people were very concerned about tenant circumstances. Now, what's interesting is that has never slowed. So we had a spike during COVID, and then we've basically come out of COVID and gone straight into a cost of living crisis. What has changed is a landlord's attitude towards rent protection. As I said before, it was maybe seen as like only bad tenants don't pay. If you're not vetting them properly, that's where you're going to have the problem. Landlords are a lot more empathetic now towards tenant situations, and they understand that it's good people that get put into bad circumstances now. And that's where they think, yes, I am going to get rent protection. I might never use it, but I know that if that tenant circumstances change through no fault of their own, then that income's going to be coming through for me. Something to just mention as like something to think about, I suppose. You have things in the news such as like HSBC towards the end of last year announced that they were going to cut 114 branches across the UK. Those people that work in those branches are not bad people. They are not bad tenants that don't want to not pay their rent. They are a victim of circumstance. And so we would have probably referenced them a couple of weeks before that happened. They've gone into that property, and then they could find themselves without a job. Hopefully, a lot of them find employment again. But what I'm basically trying to tell your landlords is it can happen to anyone. It's not just through people that are deciding not to pay and, paying their Sky bill instead of paying their rent and all that sort of stuff. It is about making sure that they are protected when those tenant circumstances change.
Just a quick question, just on that. What's the time period that a landlord can apply for the policy? We obviously deal with it a lot of the time at the start of the tenancy. Could a landlord apply for a policy retrospectively if their tenant meets the criteria to be eligible for the policy?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of caveats. So as you say, at the start of the tenancy, it's nice and easy to add it on because you get the tenant referenced, you move them in, and the policy is added before they get the keys. What a lot of our customers are doing at the minute is their landlords are looking at their portfolio or the property that they have through their letting agent and saying, right, can I add it on mid-tenancy? So we would call it a mid-tenancy application. As long as the referencing is done in the last 6 years, okay, no arrears on the property in the last 12 months, you can add this product on at any point during that time. So within 6 years of them moving in, you can add it on. One thing to mention though at that point is there is a 60-day no claims period. Mm-hmm. So this does not apply on new tenancies, but on existing tenancies, if you buy a policy today for a tenant that moved in last year, you cannot claim for any event that happens in that next 60 days. That is just to protect the policy basically and stop people from taking it out and claiming immediately. Yeah. But again, that only applies on a mid-tenancy and not on a new policy.
Also, just to clarify again, another point with it, the policy belongs to the property, doesn't it, and not the tenancy. So a landlord can swap tenants. Say it had a 12-month policy, they swap tenants after 6, 8, 9 months, whatever. That the remaining part of that policy, provided that the tenants meet the criteria, remains active, doesn't it?
That's right, yeah. So many moons ago, there were products available that were on the tenant. Now, what that would mean is if Matt, for example, decided to move into a property today and then you bought a 12-month rent protection, if Matt decides after 6 months, oh, I'm going now, I'm gonna post the keys back through, and that's it, I'm not going to live there anymore, that policy would leave with Matt, and so you've paid for a product that you no longer can use. Whereas James, you're absolutely right, it's based on the property. So say Matt, I'm sure you wouldn't do this, but say Matt, you did that and you took the policy out, then we find James to move into the property, we would just reference James, move him in, and that policy just continues. It rolls on and on over the property until that landlord either decides to sell or doesn't want the rent protection anymore.
That's good stuff.
It is. You mentioned one thing about an inventory that's kind of stuck in my head. So obviously you got most of the compliance documents from Goodlord because the platform's fantastic. All of that's uploaded before the tenancy starts. But you mentioned that we would need to send over an inventory. Is that a compulsory thing to qualify for the policy, or is that just a kind of a preferred document to have to assist it?
So the reason that we need an inventory, so I suppose there's two parts to answer your question really there, Matt. You do need a policy for the rent protection. You do need an inventory for the rent protection. The reason is because we need to be able to see what state that property was in before that tenant fell into arrears. Yep. There have been cases, quite a few, where that tenant said, well, I'm not paying because there's XYZ wrong in my property, and it's been caused by them, but we have absolutely no proof to say that that wasn't the case. So then that jeopardizes the court case and getting possession when we go to court. So that's why we need the inventory. If an inventory isn't done, we would still do all the legal eviction. We would still take them through the legal process, but no payment under the policy would be made until it was confirmed that that had not had a detrimental effect against the claim. So but what I am saying basically is that an inventory is really important for them to have if they want the policy to work as it should.
Yeah, we've always championed inventories anyway, and we kind of call it the most important document outside of the AST. But I think obviously when landlords are rightly so stretched, is that seems like a luxury extra, but actually it's vitally important. Even if you don't have rent protection, it's important, but more so in this case.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not personally a landlord myself, and I do understand, as you said, with all the charges that come with being a landlord. But for me, making sure that your property can be returned to the state that it was in before you let it out, even if that's just right at the end through the deposit process, that's what's really key. So yeah, inventories are championed by Goodlord as well.
Yeah, good. We're on the same page.
So just another sort of technical question about the policies. Say you have a tenant that moves out and just, like say, hands the keys back. Where does the landlord, they just hand the keys back, just middle of the term, they've moved out, they just go, and they abandon the property for all intents and purposes. Where does the landlord stand with their policy in a situation like that?
So James, the aim of rent protection is to get vacant possession back of a property. So if that tenant has left the property and you've had the keys back, we've got the end result that we would want. And in that scenario, you would just have to find a new tenant and move them in. If the tenant hadn't paid their last month's rent from when they lived in there, and then they'd also decided to leave, you could claim under the policy for the last month's rent and then up to 2 months at 75% as well after. What we wouldn't do is hold the tenant for the rest of the tenancy that they owed. So it's basically, say they didn't pay the 1st of January and they moved out 3rd of February, we would cover the rent for that time, and then it's up to 2 months at 75% after that. We would not hold them for the rest of the year's rent that they owed, because you've got that property back and you can relet it.
I suppose there's all sorts of things that can change within that. There's lots of different ways that can happen which will affect it. So I guess it's a case by case situation, but generally that's the way that would work.
That's right, and obviously it is difficult for landlords when that happens, because then they've got the reletting fee and things like that. But it's sort of something that comes along with possibly with being a landlord. Most of the time, tenants do give that notice, and even if it's before they should be moving out, you've probably got a bit of time to be able to find a new tenant and move them in, so that there's no gap there. But yeah, that's how that part of the policy would work if the tenant did decide to up and leave early.
Right.
Have you covered all your questions, James?
Covered all my questions.
Yep. So one to finish then, and this is data. We know Goodlord loves a bit of data and loves telling us.
We do.
So I know you might be able to give me the exact amount, but roughly how many claims have you seen over the last 2 years? And do you know, kind of as a figure, we use the word saved, maybe saved is the wrong word, but how much that has saved landlords in the process?
So what I can tell you from our claims data is that we are still seeing quite a significant increase on claims in comparison to where we were. We're talking 3 years ago before COVID. Yeah, about three. That's crazy. So about 3 years ago, the data is just increasing. So the people are citing the cost of living crisis for the reason that they aren't able to pay. We've got quite a lot of circumstances where people have been served a Section 21 and 2 months is not enough time for them to save up some money to be able to get into another property. So they're staying in there. We're doing those evictions as well. So there is a significant increase, Matt. What I did is just before we thought we were going to have a chat today, I've had a look at a claim that was in the area that you guys operate in. So if it's all right with you, I'm just going to run through like what that looked like and what we paid out. So it was a rent of £1,400. So it's quite a high rent, really, but and I'm sure you guys deal with that side, with those size properties as well. The tenant stopped paying in December 2021. So that rent from the 1st of December stopped at that point. The claim was logged and then processed by Goodlord. Now, we didn't get a court date available in the area until August 2022. Which means that the rent paid out at that point, we were getting up to sort of £12,600.
Wow.
That rent there, that is just rent. That is no legal fees or anything like that. That is what was paid out up until the point that we went to court. All the legal fees are covered. So all the legal advocate, all the court fees that come with taking that tenant to court and getting their day in court so that you can try and get the property back. Landlords would usually have to cover them themselves. We got a bailiff appointment in October 2022. So again, we got possession in August, but didn't get a bailiff appointment till October. And then we also had, once we got vacant possession back of that property, it was in a really poor state of repair, and it took 5 weeks to get that property back into a lettable state and find a new suitable tenant to move in there. So the full payout on that claim was £17,000 in rent, and then you've got all the legal fees on top of that as well. So just the rent on its own, that's a really scary figure for anyone to think about, and it's all relative. Whether your property is £700 a month, you do not want to be footing the bill for a process that takes near enough sort of 10, 11 months to get that tenant out of the property. So that is not an extreme example either. The average eviction time in the UK at the moment is 10 months. So that's a Ministry of Justice statistic as well. So that was a pretty average claim that we would be dealing with.
Wow. Yeah, that's been a big thing since COVID, and again through experience of dealing with these claims and other possession claims since the COVID restrictions came in. There's been longer times to wait for court dates and so on in the process after that. You know, I guess it will gradually catch up, but if there are still cases that are coming, it's going to take a long time to do that. But yeah, no, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us, Maria, and thank you for sharing all that information and lots of questions to go through and various bits to discuss. But that's been really useful to learn from you and pass on that information to landlords. It's important for them to know.
That is no problem at all. Thanks ever so much for having me.
Thank you.
Always welcome back. Thank you, Maria.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
So thank you for watching that video. If you did last at the very end, you get an extra little treat from myself and James. So we just wanted to clarify what services the rent guarantee policy is available on, because of course it is only available from managed services.
Yeah, so it's available on the Light Plus service if you just have your rent collected from us. But if you have the fully managed service, you can get it under our new advanced service. The cost of the policy is £25 plus VAT per month. So it does make a lot of sense, particularly when you consider some of the numbers that Maria was talking about earlier. And for that, we also manage the policy for you as well. So we'll manage the claims, we'll liaise with the solicitors, and we will work with them to get you possession of your property back as quickly as possible.
Yep. So great for peace of mind and to protect your investment. So if you want to have a chat with that, please give us a call. You know the number to call, or send us an email if you can't get through, because of course it is very, very busy in the rental market right now. So drop us an email, give us a call. We'll be happy to answer any questions or to get that policy in place for you. Brilliant. Thank you very much.